Many of us will at some point find ourselves in the situation where we feel like we've become a victim of our anxiety. Today, I want to teach you one of the most important lessons I had to learn to get the other side of my anxiety issues, and with a little help from Luke Skywalker, explaining how we get back in control of our anxiety and avoid simply playing the role of victim in our own story. Let's do it. So welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time, I'm Tim Box. I'm a mind coach, and for more than a decade now, I've been working with people to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular, helping them get control of anxiety. Now, the process of achieving this often starts by doing whatever is necessary to discard the current beliefs that keep us stuck in an anxious state of mind. In this video, I want to explain a simple mindset shift that will go a huge way towards putting you back in control. So, let's start at the beginning. A few years ago, I gave a TEDx talk entitled How to Stop Feeling Anxious About Anxiety. You may have seen that talk online. It might even be how you found my channel. But before the talk itself, there was a whole drawn out application and selection process before I got to do it. You see, unless you're already famous, you don't just get invited to give a TED talk, you have to apply. Now, each TEDx event is run independently, and whilst they have guidelines and rules from TED, each one operates slightly differently when it comes to selecting the speakers and preparing them for the talk. The one I spoke at required you to attend a number of pre-selection events before applying, so the organisers could give feedback and assist you with your idea. They were kind of like pitch evenings where you spoke for a couple of minutes about your talk idea and you had an American Idol style panel giving you feedback and critique. One of the other people pitching that evening was a scriptwriter who I thought had a great idea for a talk. He spoke about how people in his profession understand that when we write a character that is effectively the hero of the story, we need to instill them with an heroic flaw that they need to overcome to win the day and fully realize their role as hero. So for example, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones is on the quest to retrieve the Ark of the Covenant. Indy is every bit the hero, but we learn very early on that he has a fear of snakes. And of course, at the end of the film, the chamber the Ark is kept in is full of snakes. It's only by facing his deepest fear that he succeeds. In the classic movie Jaws, Chief Brody has to kill the shark terrorizing the people of Amity Island, but he's afraid of water. Inevitably, the final scene sees him having to overcome that fear to make the final shot that destroys the shark. Now, in his TEDx pitch, the scriptwriter made the point that this idea is pretty much ingrained in our psyche and our culture. We understand why the main character is heroic because they face their greatest fear or overcome their biggest shortcoming. And yet, as ordinary, everyday individuals, how often do we go out of our way to confront our fears or overcome our demons? Perhaps not that often. In fact, most people spend their lives sidestepping, avoiding, or even running away from their fears and concerns. And then, of course, we wonder why we feel more like a victim in our own story rather than the hero. Now, many of you will know I can be a bit of a Star Wars nerd, and there's a scene in the original movie that is often cited as one of the best examples where a character deliberately chooses to step into the role of hero of the story. The hero of Star Wars is, of course, Luke Skywalker. There's a scene in the first act after he's met Obi-Wan Kenobi and actually turned down his call to adventure to take on the evil Empire, where he returns home only to find it pretty much destroyed and his uncle and aunt who raised him murdered. In that moment, Luke is the victim. His entire family killed and everything he knows gone. And there's a particular shot in that scene where he first sees the charred bodies of his aunt and uncle, and he looks away. Then the music swells, the theme changes slightly, and he looks back with a much more resolved and determined look on his face. That's the moment where he decides to fight. That's where he takes the decision to do something to steer away from the path of the victim and move towards the path of the hero. Now, I'll often talk to my clients about this scene, not because I'm trying to get them to become a Jedi, but because I'm trying to illustrate the point that every hero starts their hero's journey as the victim. If we're dealing with high anxiety, feeling like a victim of it is the inevitable first step of our anxiety journey. Anyone who ever overcame their anxiety issue at some point felt like a victim of it. It's the choice we make next that dictates the role we take in this story. And it's worth noting that nobody ever became the hero without overcoming adversity. Clients often tell me that they just want to get back to the old version of them and feel the way they did before all this anxiety started. But the truth is, you can't do that. And if you think about it, you wouldn't want to. First of all, the old version of you still felt anxious a lot of the time. You just didn't notice it because anxiety itself wasn't perceived to be a problem that needed to be paid attention to. Anxiety is a regular, normal, and benign human emotion. You've felt it since before you can remember. The quest to go back to when you were anxiety-free would probably require you to return to the womb, and that's not going to happen. Secondly, that version of you from the past was the version that hadn't had the experiences you've now had and didn't know the things you now know. You can't simply reverse time and undo what you've been through and the growth you've experienced. But that's a good thing. That old version of you was vulnerable to becoming excessively anxious, even though you didn't realize it then. You might have been ignorant to any possibility of an anxiety issue, but that's part of what left you vulnerable to it. You were also ignorant to what ultimately you will learn to get the other side of it. In the same way you can't forget what you've been through, you also won't forget what you eventually learn that helps you overcome it. Once there, what you've learned will mean you will never again be vulnerable to anxiety getting out of hand to the point where it feels all-consuming. The truth is, we don't want to return to the old version of ourselves. We want to move on to a more experienced, more knowledgeable, and less vulnerable version of us. Why would we seek to go backwards when our best days are very probably still ahead of us? Most of us spend a lot of energy trying to avoid the things we fear or that we feel triggers anxiety. And all that does is keep us in the mindset of victim. And I've never met anyone who was happy with that role. I've met so many people that feel like the story of the rest of their life has already been written and their role in that story is victim. Yet so often, it's only this belief that keeps them locked into that role. We were told we have anxiety and now all our energy goes into managing our anxiety. What if instead we realized that nobody's story is predetermined and we all get to choose what path we take? The bottom line is that this story now, this is your story. You're writing it. And in your story, you're meant to be the hero. I really hope this video has been of value and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell for weekly mind management tips and anxiety advice. Also, you can now become a member of the channel and receive extra content every week, including video tutorials of my full system for change with extra insights and exclusive live streams. Just hit the join button on the homepage. But that's it for now. I'm Tim Box, Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.